First off, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Scott Swenson. I am the Director of Production in the Entertainment Department here. And so I kind of head up the team that is responsible for the development of the shows here in the park, many of the events here in the park. And for the last 8 years, I've been the creative director for Howl-O-Scream. So if you walk through any of our haunted houses and you go, what sort of sick, twisted individual comes up with this stuff? That would probably be me. If it wasn't me, it's something that came across my desk, and I said, hey, that's a great idea, let's do that. I was part of the creation of the event 13 years ago. It was a 3-person team, and we put it together then, and I've been involved in some capacity ever since, and like I said, for the last 8 years, I've been the creative director. What we're going to do here tonight is talk a little bit about what it takes to put this event together. Kind of an insider's view. Where this all started was our tours group came to me several years ago and said, Scott, could we take the Ultimate Tour folks backstage at a haunted house while we're working? And I said, well, we could, but if we do that, what we're going to see is about half the cast in half of their costumes smoking and drinking Gatorade. So it's not that exciting behind the scenes. We felt that it would be more exciting and more beneficial to everybody if we were to give you a little bit of insight as to what it takes to put this event together. So I'm going to give you kind of some of the backstory. We're going to start at the very beginning, because that's a very fine place to start. It actually all starts with research. Now you're probably thinking, what kind of research would you do for a haunted attraction? Well, some of it is actually going on right now. We look at what has worked, or more accurately at this moment, what is working. We ask ourselves, it's a real simple model. Start, stop, continue. Start doing things we aren't doing that we feel we should be. Stop doing things we are doing that aren't working, and continue doing things that are working and that we can make better. So I'm here every night of the event. I spend a lot of time talking to the guests. I spend a lot of time listening to the guests. Even sitting here standing here doing these kinds of presentations, I get a lot of great ideas. I hear a lot of, this is great, this is not so great. And that helps us grow and continue to become the top quality event that we strive to be. I've also got other members of my team here every night, so it's not just me. I'm not the only one who takes in the information. We got a lot of folks out there listening. We also do formalized focus groups. Now, in these focus groups, they usually happen anywhere from a month to 2 months after the event is done. People are invited who have been part of the event, come to the event, or have never come to the event at all. They come into a conference room in a big high office building in downtown Tampa. They're asked questions, as many of us sit behind a two-way mirror and take notes. I think I'm the only one who sits behind that mirror and wants very badly to just jump up and bang on the back of it just to scare somebody. They haven't let me do that yet. I have a fear that if they do, it'll be the last time I attend the focus groups. We also look at upcoming trends. We look at pop culture. What's coming up in movies, television, video games, literature. We look at all those kinds of things. And in fact, one of the houses that we're going to spend some time talking about tonight is Blood Asylum. Now, Blood Asylum actually came about from both the focus groups who said they wanted an asylum haunted house. We did one several years ago called Escape from Insanity. But they wanted a new asylum house. And then if we look at upcoming trends, we discovered that American Horror Story, the TV series, is now set in an asylum this season. So we opted to kind of get on the bandwagon and say, oh, this is probably the time to do an asylum haunted house. And then finally, brainstorming. This is where we take a bunch of people who either work here or work in the industry outside of here. We lock ourselves in a great big room. We put in a lot of caffeine and a lot of chocolate. And we talk until we come up with some ideas. And sometimes these ideas are completely impossible, or at least impossible when we talk about them at the time, so we put them on the back burner until they become possible. And sometimes they become parts of haunted houses. So after we do that, then we start to put together some concept imagery. I'm a firm believer that if we have images or pictures, it's much easier to tell a story and much easier to pitch a new idea. So the images come from a lot of different places. I spend a lot of time Googling. I also spend a lot of time at various trade shows. There's a really big trade show for the haunt industry. It takes place every year. And right now it's in St. Louis. It has been in St. Louis for the last few years. It's called Transworld. And the cool thing about Transworld is you go to all of these haunt vendors and you get to find out what is the most realistic looking fake blood. Questions that you can't ask at most trade shows. One of the things that we found at last year's trade show was this frozen mannequin. which I thought looked very realistic and thought was pretty cool. So it helped inspire the ice bath room in Blood Asylum. There's actually 2 of those mannequins in that room. Other images come from different places and for different needs. For example, there's a video that we made for sort of the backstory of Blood Asylum, and this video plays in the general queue line. There's also a small monitor playing it in the VIP queue line. You can also find a shortened version of that on YouTube if you want to know a little bit more about the Oglethorpe Asylum. But we needed something that looked like the outside of the Oglethorpe Asylum, because it's fictional, it doesn't exist. So I Googled vintage asylum. I don't know whether I'm the only person who's ever done that, but I did. And I came up with this. This is the Dexter Asylum. It's in Michigan. It was built in the late 1800s. I just thought it was a cool looking building, and since it's a real asylum, it made it even cooler for me. Made it more interesting. So after we put together the concept images, then we go into kind of the boring part, so I'll move through this as quickly as I can. We create venue flows. This is actually what takes the most of my own personal time, where we actually sit down and write the script for the haunted house. Now, this is the format that we use, and it's a series of columns. The first column is the name of the room. The next is, it says creative, so it's a narrative of what happens to the guest as they walk through that room. The next is scenic and special effects, lighting, audio, costumes, makeup and props, and finally cast. Now, the reason we use this format is if you happen to be, for example, the costume designer, you can go straight to the costume column, read down, and know everything you have to do. If you want to figure out how it works with the other disciplines, you read horizontally. And you can figure out, oh, I understand that works with this. I will be honest, this is not all of the creative for this room. There's actually twice as much of this, but it didn't fit on the slide, so I just cut it off. Sorry. But this is the venue flow for the one room in Blood Asylum called the day room. So if you went in the VIP entrance, when you walked in and turned to your left, and you saw the TV up in the corner and the guy drawing with poop against the wall, that's the room you were in. It's the day room. And the full venue flow for all of the haunted houses is a book about that thick. And all of it is 10-point font. Now you see why I say this takes the most time to do. But it then becomes sort of our show Bible. It's what we always go back to. Are we being true to the original idea? So once the words are all done, then we get to the ground plan, or does everything in Scott's mind fit in the building that we have? Here is the ground plan for Blood Asylum. It is, this is a map. There's the queue line, the outside queue line, and you guys came in right there. It shows where all of the scares are. It also makes certain, like I said, that everything fits in the building. But equally as importantly, it shows us, can we make this ADA compliant? Because all of our haunted houses, you can put a standard wheelchair through, which means that all the pathways are a minimum of 44 inches wide. All of the doorways are a minimum of 36 inches wide, and nothing is shorter than 6'8". I do that because I'm 6'4", so if I do that, I know it's about 6'8". So you'll see me walking through haunted houses like this from time to time going, is that tall enough? I don't know. Anything that a guest in a wheelchair cannot experience, like the steps before the vortex in Nightshade Toys, there is a bypass. So we want to make sure that all of our guests, everything in the Halloween event is compliant with our ADA regulations. It also shows us where we need to put emergency exits. It shows us where we can put lighting and power drops. It just kind of gives us a nice roadmap as we continue the development of the haunted house. After we figure out if everything is going to fit, then we get to work with, well, someone who's become a very good friend and an incredibly talented artist out of California, a guy by the name of Keith Kaminsky. Keith is really good at taking the words and making great pictures out of them. This book here is called The Color Package. Until we started doing these Ultimate tours, the only people who saw the color package were people who were working on the event, whether they were vendors building the scenic or the lighting designer, audio designer, etc. When you saw that venue flow page, this is how it translates into the color package. And if you went through it, it's pretty close to the way the room actually looks. There is a picture for each room and some wall call-outs as well. I will leave these up here if you'd like to come up and thumb through them after the presentation. You're more than welcome to. The only thing I do ask is that you don't photograph anything in these books. You can take pictures of everything else up here, but just don't photograph these because they are intellectual property. We do have to kind of protect that a little bit. So if you want to thumb through and look at it, that's great. If you want to quickly try to sketch it, that's fine too. But please don't take it. Please don't take it. And if you can do it, then I may have a job for you. Because, well, don't tell Keith that. He'd be very upset. And I just have to show you, I have the other one up here. This is the one that we use for Circus of Superstition as well, the 3D house. And done by the same artist, but has a very different style and a very different look, which is why I like to work with Keith, because he really understands kind of what's going on in my head. But here's the hat on a bedroom, which I think turned out really, really well. So you can see, now keep in mind, these drawings were not done after the scenic was done. These were done before. So when we went through and did scenic walkthroughs, we'd have these in our hands. And we go, oh, okay, now that's pretty good. So we always had a reference to go back to. These are kind of fun to thumb through if you want to. After we're done, I'll leave them up here. So once we get all the pictures done, then we bid everything out and we start into the installation phase. They start building things for HowlOScream. Let me give you a little timeline check. We start our research now, so we're already starting new ideas for next year. Really top line, sort of 30,000 foot concepts. By February, by end of February, all of the venue flows will be done. By usually March, April, that's when we get the color packages. We bid those out to various scenic companies to build the scenery. They will start construction in their warehouses and their workshops usually in June, and they'll start on property mid to late July into early August. As things become installed, or as the installation process goes on, I'm always running around taking pictures. Here's one of the installation photos of one of the hallways in Blood Asylum. You see that piece of plywood that's in that door right there? That is one of the drop doors that pops open to reveal an actor. That's what it looks like before it got painted to match all of the other doors. The first room that you walk in when you come in the VIP entrance is the admitting room. And we've worked with the scenic company for quite a few years, and they always like to put their own little touch on things. If you read the names, most of the names on the clipboards are the installation team from the scenic installer. The other thing that I think is very funny is they usually will include at least one celebrity, and this year James Van Der Beek. That's actually one of the, yeah. So he's one of the celebrities who is now a resident apparently at Oglethorpe Asylum. Speaking of resident at Oglethorpe Asylum, you'll notice a lot of people ask, why does this mannequin have bunny ears? Well, I will give you a little insider tip. Anytime you see a bunny in one of the haunted houses that I've been involved with, it's kind of like a hidden signature. I was born in the year of the rabbit. One of the jobs that I had while I was working here, I actually took a little side gig where I did a children's television show called The All New Captain Kangaroo. And I was the puppeteer for Bunny Rabbit and Grandfather Clock. So anytime you see a bunny rabbit, it's me kind of putting a little secret signature in there. So not only is it in this house, it's also in the other new one where you walk into the 3D bloody stump bunnies. So you'll look at, so now when you walk through the haunted houses, you'll see a rabbit and you'll go, oh look, that's Scott's signature. And the person next to you will go, no, that's a rabbit. So, they'll think you've had a little bit too much to drink. And this picture I put in there just because I think this is a great little vignette that is in the midst of Blood Asylum, and not a lot of people get a chance to really study it and look at it, but it's hideously glorious, or gloriously hideous, one or the other. Lighting, audio, and atmospheric. So we got all the scenic up, now we have to make it look really good and create a strong environment. Lighting can make or break any haunted house. I have a lot of people who are starting up in the haunt industry or do home haunts or whatever, who will come up and say, what should I do? Invest in lighting. Pay attention, and there's some great cheap lighting out there now that you can get that's LEDs and all that sort of stuff. And hi guys, sorry we couldn't wait. I'm glad you're here though. The lighting can take things that are made of one substance and make it look like they're made of something else. The reason I pointed out, or I used this particular photo to talk about lighting, that's one of those big monolithic werewolf statues that we have over in Egypt. And it's made out of carved foam and fiberglass. But if you light it properly, it looks like it's a big, just a big monolithic statue. Audio. What you hear in our haunted houses, or even throughout our parks, is really important because it helps set the mood. It helps set the tone. If any of you are gamers, like computer gamers, you'll notice there's an awful lot of gamer music in our area music in the park. And the reason I did that is I want people to feel as though they're in an adventure. I wanted to kind of get you all psyched and ready to go that something is going to happen that I'm going to have to participate in. There's an awful lot of, well, let me share with you in my opinion, one of my big failures that we were able to fix before we opened this year. Up here at Ultimate Gamble, last year Ultimate Gamble was a big, loud casino, vampire casino, very bright, and we had this sort of Rat Pack soundtrack as you were walking out, very Vegas-y. And I thought, oh great, well now that it's condemned, we'll just use a sort of a scratchy, broken down version of that exact same soundtrack. And we put it in there and it sounded like crap. It was just horrible. And I thought, well this isn't right. So we had to go back and figure out what we wanted. And we had to go back and sit down and figure out what exactly is the mood that we wanted. And I said, well I need it to sound hollow and empty, broken down. And so we played with sound effects, you know, like doors slamming and echoing, and that wasn't quite right either. So Bill Norman, who does a lot of the audio recording for us, said, Scott, what if we did musical drone? I was like, what? A musical drone. Got it. He pulls down a CD called Musical Drones. Apparently it exists. He started playing them, and I was like, that's perfect. So when you walk up there now, what you hear is so it sounds open and empty, and you may not even notice that there's music or there's sound playing, but it gives you that feeling of, yeah, it's kind of a sinister emptiness. And it was perfect, so thank goodness Bill came up with that idea. I did put a photograph in here of one of our street shows. This is our magician in Slip of the Tongue, and yes, he is pounding a nail up his nose. But the reason I put that up there is we actually added different musical backgrounds or musical tracks under each one of his magic tricks. Not that he needed them, but it just helped create a different mood or a different emotional feeling for each one of them. And then finally, atmospheric. I love fog. Fog is great for me, because you can be walking in a crowd, get a blast of fog, and all of a sudden you are completely by yourself. You don't know where anybody is, or more importantly, where anyone is coming from. And you run into everyone. Or you run into the person next to you and get scared by them, which makes my job much easier. In addition to fog, we do use other forms of atmospheric. We use water and misters and that sort of thing. You know, everybody's gotten squirted on at least once, I'm sure. Tina Tinkle gets everybody. But we also use scent machines. Now they're called scent pops. They're actually a plug-in scent machine. They're sort of like the Glade plug-ins, except they're bigger and you can change out the scent in them. One of the ones, for example, that we use when you walk through, which one do I want to talk about? When you walk through Blood Asylum, in the room that has the woman laid out, we call it the lobotomy room. She's laid out and she has the top of her head cut off. There is a scent in there called antiseptic smell. And it makes it smell antiseptic, as the name suggests. If you go into the viewing room at Zombie Mortuary, where all the flowers are, there's a rose scent that is in there. It's kind of a sour rose scent, but it's still a rose scent. When you walk into the crematorium in Zombie Mortuary, there's a burning. I wanted the smell of burning human flesh. Unfortunately, they didn't have that in the catalog. So I did have. What's funny though is I have a very funny story. The company that makes these scents, I asked them one year, do you have something that is the smell of something dead? And they said, oh no, that's far too gross. I understand that they have since created the scent of death. I haven't smelled it yet. I don't think I want to. But for the crematorium room, since they didn't have the smell of burning human flesh, I decided, well, it's burning its flesh. Let's use bacon. So it is actually a bacon scent when you walk in there. And people either walk in and go, oh, it smells like something's burning. Or they walk in and go, yeah, let's do Denny's after this. So, either way, it adds another level, it adds another layer to that particular room. There's a lot of other ones. There's like a wet earth smell at the end of Zombie Mortuary. That's the real obvious one. You get that one a lot. All right, it's Halloween. Let's talk about costumes and makeup. Everybody wants to talk about this stuff, and I brought a lot of samples, so I'm excited. Just to give you some idea, it takes 640 performers every night to bring just the haunted houses, the roaming hordes, and the scare zones to life. So you take those 640 and you multiply that by a minimum of 2 costume pieces per person, maximum of about 10. Creating these costumes is a huge undertaking. Maintaining them and getting them back to the right people is even bigger. So we have a great costume team who works almost year-round to create and store and get all the stuff together. And our job is quite often to make new things look hideous. This is a perfect example. This is one of the costumes from one of our roaming hordes, which we call Team Dead. It's our football player and cheerleader horde. And the idea was we wanted them to look like they were decaying, that they were kind of zombies. It was, I will be honest, it was inspired by the movie Beetlejuice. Yeah, it was. And because it used to just be cheerleaders, and we were like, oh, we should add football players. That would be fun too. So this is brand new. It has been washed once, machine washed. As you see, it's got some green on it, which is airbrushed on. We also use glossy latex paint to create blood, and then the chunky stuff that you see that looks like either vomit or decaying flesh or what, I don't know, whatever your imagination takes you there. This is something that if you've ever been in the haunt industry or if you've worked as a contractor, you will recognize. It's called Great Stuff. It is a spray foam that is usually used to insulate around pipes. If you've ever worked with it, the moment it gets into your clothes, it never, ever comes out. Because what happens is as it sprays in, it expands into the fibers, so it's really hard to get out. So we can take this and machine wash it. And believe me, after a full night of scaring, it needs to be washed. Once again, I'll leave this stuff up here, so if you want to come up and touch the goopy stuff, you're more than welcome to. Some of the other challenges that we have when we're doing costumes is we have to make new costumes look old. Not necessarily bloody and disgusting, but old. Here's one of our clown costumes. Yes, this is relatively new. But the idea is we have to make things look aged in some way or another. So one of the first things we do is we'll take bleach water, put it in a misting bottle, and spray it. So that fades it, and it fades it in kind of an even way. We'll even take a cheese grater and go back and rough up the elbows or the knees to make them look like they're naturally worn. We'll take out the hem of something so it looks like it's falling apart. With the feathers, we wash the feathers. Don't wash feathers, because they end up looking like this. And then we'll go back with airbrush and just a little smattering of blood, because you can really never have too much blood, can you? It's my own personal feeling. And then you've got things like costumes that, if they were real, would be very, very difficult to use. In Blood Asylum, some of the characters need to wear straitjackets. Some of the performers need to wear straitjackets, quite honestly. But to really put an actor into a straitjacket for a long period of time, they don't stay around very long. So what we did was we created this kind of straitjacket where all they have to do is pop their arms underneath their armpits, and it looks like they're wearing a straitjacket, especially if you see them quickly for a very short period of time, and depending on the lighting. The truth of the matter is this is made of polyester, and it velcros in the back. So it's remarkably more comfortable than a real straitjacket. Then we went back and airbrushed it so that it has a little bit of shading, a little bit of age, and it reinforces the straps and the buckles. In some of them, actually, you'll see buckles airbrushed in. So we also have to take into consideration how long are people going to see the costumes and under what lighting. So since we've talked a little bit about costumes, let's move on to makeup. In this event, we use every kind of makeup you can imagine. Everything from traditional cream makeup, like this makeup here. This is called a bruise wheel, by the way. A bruise wheel because it's got all the colors you need to make a good bruise. So a makeup artist can just pop this in their pocket, come out, retouch somebody's makeup, make somebody look like they're really beat up. Pretty cool. We do have 4 airbrush artists that we use. The airbrush artists are used primarily for the shows. The shows, the shot boys and girls, the club dancers, and a couple of characters in Alone. Then we also use prosthetic devices. These are called watermelons. They are a very high grade of latex, but they're a latex that has an additive to it that makes it so that you don't need any sort of adhesive to apply them. They break down with rubbing alcohol. So if you put just a little bit of rubbing alcohol on the back of these appliances, lay them on the face, they will stick. Then you can take a sponge with rubbing alcohol, go around the edges, and it makes the appliance just fade into the skin, so there's no hard line around the outside. The big round chunky one that we're passing around is actually this wound right here. We call it large pustule. What's really fun about this is, well, the fact that we get to call it large pustule is pretty fun. But the fact that these are all made over the summer, they are actually made by our own special effects team. They make molds and then cast them in these molds. They are stored in pizza boxes. You're probably thinking, why pizza boxes? Well, because they can store flat and the boxes stack nicely. And then you can just read, they have it written down on the outside what is in all the boxes. So there's large scratches, cat scratches, bullet holes, large pustules. So yeah, as soon as you guys, just make sure I get them back up here so I can do them for the next group. In addition to prosthetics, we do also use fangs and claws. The vampire fangs are actually like caps, go over your teeth. These are more like veneers. You put a little low melt plastic on the back. While it's still warm, you put it in front of your teeth. It makes a perfect mold and will stay in your teeth as long as you want them to. Then all you have to do is lift them out. Not your teeth, these. Although I have plenty of bridges, so I'm always afraid that that's going to happen. And then we also have killer claws. We don't make these; we buy these. I'm not doing an ad for dental distortions, but they do make the best ones. So, and you can get these at the Spirit store. Then we have some masks. Now, all of our masks are made exclusively for us. We no longer buy masks from an outside vendor. We have them made for us. We don't use, or we use very few latex masks. Most of our masks are silicone. Now the reason we use silicone is because it creates a lot more depth, and it also moves really well when you're wearing them. Now this is a mask that I had our team create, which is kind of like a half mask. And the reason I had them do this is because some of our performers, who are a little more claustrophobic, can't wear a full head mask. So this one remains a lot more comfortable, and with just a little bit of makeup on the lower jaw and neck, it looks like this huge prosthetic makeup job that would have taken about 4 hours if you were to do it as a lot of different individual appliances. But it's really quick to put on, it's relatively comfortable to wear, and the thing our performers like the most about it is they can take it off on their breaks, dip it in a bucket of cold water. All of the heat goes away like that. When they put it back on, it's almost refreshing. Notice I said almost. It is still a mask. But some of the full head masks, they get really kind of sinister. Here's one that's from, this is from Blood Asylum. This is the creature. This is Stu Loomis. You see him multiple times throughout the house. There's a shot of him. The idea behind the creature is that when he would kill people, he would skin off their faces and wear them as a mask. It was our team that, it was our M6 team, special effects guys, who decided he wears it as a mask by wrapping the face in barbed wire, which I thought was just a wonderfully hideous little addition. If you look at it really close, you'll see the edge of the face and then the skin of the person underneath it. Again, I will leave this up here if you want to come up and take a good close look at it. The only thing I do ask is, again, please don't take these off of the heads and put them on your own face, because, well, that would be gross. We show this to a lot of people. So, and then the clown mask that you see up here, this is one that was actually built and then rejected for Circus of Superstition 3D. Anyone have any idea as to why I said no to this one in Circus of Superstition?
Stephen King's It.
I'm sorry? Stephen King's It. That's exactly right. Not only did I think that was not the right choice, I also didn't want Mr. King knocking on our door saying, hey, you owe me money. So, the thing about this mask, though, is incredibly well made, to the point where if I were to put it on right now and open my mouth, if I lower my jaw, it actually opens the mouth to the mask. So, okay, now I want to try it on. I haven't put this one on yet, so let's see if it works. One of the things, too, that's kind of cool about the way our masks are built. Oh, it's not too bad. Oh, wow. Okay, maybe I've reconsidered. Now, because silicone is very fragile, one of the things that our mask team has done, and you can see it pretty well if I turn this one inside out in the light here. There is a nylon mesh that is actually embedded into the silicone. So think of it as sort of like ripstop nylon, you know, when you put a mesh inside the ripstop to make it sturdier. Our team does exactly the same thing with these masks. But since it's a stretchable mesh, it stretches with the silicone and makes them so they last much longer. That's kind of a fun mask. I like that. I should wear that more often. This year, for the very first time since I've started doing these presentations, I actually have a couple things that were actually used in the television commercial and the photo shoot. And they're sitting right over there. You'll probably recognize right off the bat, Trickster's mask. This is the original Trickster's mask that was built by a company in California for the TV commercial. The thing that's most unusual about it is the actor who performed Trickster actually had a very small face. So, as you can see, it doesn't quite make it onto my face. There was a 12-year-old in one of the presentations here who picked up and went, "Oh yeah, fits me fine," and it did. So what we had to do when we replicated this, our team made a silicone casting of the mask. And then they were able to replicate it over and over and over again out of a more flexible material, so it would fit on different faces, different sizes. And what was really cool is when you do a silicone casting, it picks up every little detail. So all the masks that are worn in the park to represent Trickster have the same wood grain that this one does as well. And then, probably the most recognizable from this year is the 13 key. And this is the 13 key. This is the one that was actually used in the commercials as well as the various photo shoots. I would love to say I had a lot to do with this. I didn't. Our marketing department worked on this very diligently. The only thing that I added was the fact that it says 13 in the actual XIII was the only thing I added. I was like, what if the teeth of the key said 13? So, but after the presentation, if you want to come up and pick this up, please be careful with it. You're welcome to touch it, but when you pick it up, you're going to go, wow, that's really light, because it's not metal. It's made of a resin, so it's remarkably light. And then again, what we did to duplicate it is we made a silicone mold. Now you're going to look at this and go, wait a minute, that's not the same size, and you are correct. What happened was the first time we started to reproduce these keys, we discovered the way we wanted to wear them around people's necks, as some of our characters, it was too long and clunky. So they made a mold of the real key, shortened the barrel, and made a second mold, and that's what this one is. But the nice thing with silicone, again, is you can fill it with pretty much anything, and then just peel the silicone back, pop out whatever it is you've made, and it's an exact duplicate of the first one. So it works out real well. Now I know we've talked about a lot of cool stuff, but so far we have not yet gotten to what I feel is the most important thing in any haunted attraction, and that is the cast itself. Now I mentioned that it takes 640 people a night. That is just for the houses, the roaming hordes. That does not include the technicians, that does not include the shows, that does not include the staff that it requires. We hire about 900 people each year for HowlOScream, and that's just in the entertainment department alone. The other departments who will sell you your food, your beer, your tours, etc., they expand and contract a little bit, but we definitely add the most. The auditions start in July, and they start with the reunion auditions. Our reunion auditions are where we invite people who worked for us before to come and audition first, so they get the first shot at the roles for the new year. We do not hire anybody under the age of 18, and our oldest performer this year is 72. Our oldest performer in the history of the event was 83. Now people say, what would an 83-year-old play in a haunted attraction? He played a character called Crooked Little Old Man. And he would walk around, he loved it. He actually, because there was several gentlemen that were of a similar age, and they went out and they carried a lantern and a big stick, and they would walk around and creep up on people and scare them, and then on their breaks they'd go back and play cards. It was a great way to spend the night, and they held up as well, if not better, than some of the younger kids. So more power to them. But it's not just those two ends of the spectrum either. You know, we actually have quite a few now that are parent and child working here, 2 generations working here. We haven't hit 3 generations yet. That will come soon. But we have had, in fact, one year we had an entire family, mom, dad, 3 sons. We're all working HowlOScream. Our HowlOScream cast, once they are part of this event, stay with this event for years. We have 3 people who've actually worked with us as a performer every one of our 13 years of operation. We have multiple people who've been with us 9, 10 years. They come back every year. It is an exhausting job, and it is very physical, and we often refer to it as the hardest job you'll ever miss when it's over. The last night of the event, there's all kinds of sadness. Everybody's like, oh, we're all done, and boy, am I glad, because I'm exhausted, and I'm really tired, and then 2 weeks later I start getting emails, when are the auditions for next year? The cast do stay together online, and they have parties throughout the course of the year, all completely on their own. Usually in November they have what is called the Screamers Ball, which is a completely non-sanctioned. Busch Gardens has nothing to do with it, but they put it together all on their own. And last year they actually rented out Gaspar's Grotto in Ybor and had it there. So it was a big old party. Big old party where they all get together one last time to kick off the end of the season. They do require training because our biggest goal is to make certain that everything they do is safe. We're here to scare you, not hurt you. So they do go through an awful lot of training to figure out how to do all of their scares safely. Some of our specialty performers, like our sliders here, go through probably the most training. The sliders are the guys who wear the shin guards, steel-toed boots, leather gloves, run out of the darkness, drop to their knees, get across the ground, make you jump and scream, and then disappear in the darkness again. They look like a bunch of thugs when they're out there performing, but the truth is they're a bunch of highly trained athletes playing the part of a bunch of thugs. The main trainer is this gentleman right here. It used to be this gentleman here, but I'm way too old to do that now. So I passed it on to Chris, and he is not only a trainer for our sliders, he also is a martial arts trainer and a black belt. So very highly trained. They range, one of them is a nurse, one of them is a competitive swing dancer, one of them is a skateboard dude. They just come from all different backgrounds, but they're all very physical and really strong athletes. So that's the kind of casting and training that we go through. I've kind of covered everything from the concept to the actual, well, tonight actually. Is there anything that I haven't covered or anything you'd like to know more about?
Yeah, what do you do at the end of the year with all the, do you break the houses down every year, or?
We have 2 houses that we break down every year completely. Ultimate Gamble and the 3D house, Circus of Superstition. Those 2 locations are used as picnic pavilions during the year. The other houses have permanent buildings. They live in those permanent buildings, but we do take down all of the outside stuff, you know, the facades and all of that, the queue lines all come down and actually get stored in the pathways of the haunted house that's in that building. Anything else?
So the only thing you work on is HowlOScream?
No. No.
You're going to work on Christmas?
I am very much working on Christmas Town, yes. Again, I lead up the team that is responsible for the development of any show that you see at Busch Gardens. Any show you see at Busch Gardens. So if you know, Let's Get Loud was developed by our team. I had significantly less to do with that than I do with HowlOScream, but I did help with the music selection and then approve the choreography and that sort of thing. For Christmas Town, for those of you who are looking forward to coming back and seeing something a little bit lighter, just a little bit. It's really going to be something very special. I'm excited. What I've been involved with the most, because of my experience with HowlOScream, is one of the elements called Welcome to Santa's House, which is a walkthrough experience leading back to Santa's workshop, which is kind of fun. And then I also wrote a new ice show that's called Angels of Peace. And so I go from Blood Asylum to Angels of Peace.
And penguins!
And penguins! And we will have penguins this year at Penguin Point. That's going to be very fun. It'll be very fun. Anything else? Folks, I just want to say thank you very, very much for being a part of this event, for spending some time with me here tonight. If you're having a good time, please tell all of your friends. And if you're not, just keep your mouth shut. Thank you very much. Have a great night.